I mean, as we got to be 16, there was another group of kids at the playground who were 11 who were doing the things we were doing, and that youth culture is gone.
Well, first of all, the connectedness between the generations is being ruptured. The old oral tradition that the immigrants brought. For example, if you ask a 21-year-old today, how many proverbs do you know in English? You know, you're lucky if they get to 6 or 10. But in the old country...
I don't think they know what a proverb is. That's yeah, another story.
Maybe, you know, a penny saved is a penny earned, Ben Franklin. But in the old country, they spoke in proverbs. I had an aunt in Lebanon. She knew over 1,000 proverbs in terms of her daily conversation. She spoke in proverbs. And when my parents came to the U.S., they didn't believe in corporal punishment, you know, hitting their own kids. They were appalled. How could you strike and harm your own offspring in a fit of temper? They disciplined us first with proverbs. And just the right Arabic proverb would, you know, when we became ambunctious, you know, like Kilshi Zed Na'as or Ktori Yakdish Yitla Hashish, you know, the wait, oh mule, until your grass grows. Well, that's for kids who procrastinate.
I bought my mom a book, a collection of them all, and she loved it. It was a collection of Lebanese mountain proverbs. And they spoke in that language. It's interesting because she always would begin something with, my mother used to say. And we knew when we were hearing that, this was not just wisdom of the past, but there was,
you better listen,
or. And I find myself increasingly, as I go on, not only quoting her, my mother used to say, but actually as things occur to me that are wise, I begin them with, my mother used to say. And I don't remember now what she actually did say, or whether it was just so wise that I put it that way, but that's gone.
But just think how superior it is to saying to a child, stop it, cut it out, you'll be sorry. Just float the right proverb. Now, sometimes,
and a lesson is conveyed.
Right, and the proverbs are, you know, containers of historical wisdom and experience, right? And that didn't work. We were told to stand in a corner near the sewing machine and contemplate our misbehavior. But there's so much wisdom in the book and insight and experience that we think a lot of families have that, but they procrastinate putting it down. And year after year goes by, and pretty soon what great-grandparents or grandparents or parents do, it's too late. And it's gone forever. And so that experience, wisdom, and insight that could be conveyed to the children and to their children is ruptured. And in place of it, we have, you know, crazy television programs for kids. It's just...
and children learn through pop culture, not through traditional culture.
Well, it's mostly corporate culture now. And we have, by the way, just to make that point, Jim, we have a website called 17traditions.com, 17 spelled out, inviting families from all over to send us one of their traditions, just to get the ball rolling, so they can begin putting down their tradition. I noticed
that, but are people responding?
Yes, they are. They're responding.
Talk to me about the youth culture, another aspect of life that is missing. Especially when we moved here to Washington, I noted that everything we did was directed by parents. Parents drive everywhere, parents organize everything. Children do not simply get together on their own. And what does that deny us?
Well, there's a tradition in a book of solitude. My parents let us have our own space and own solitude, because they thought, they intuited, without having the benefit of a PhD in child psychology, they intuited that the child's wonder and dreaming and imagination is enhanced. So we were free to gaze at the stars and follow the butterflies and puddle around with our stamp collection. And the tradition of simple enjoyments in the book, we only had 2 commercial enjoyments: going to see the Yankee games once in a while, or going to the movie theater twice a year. Everything else was participatory. It wasn't spectator, like going to see Yankees or a movie. So it was hide and seek, it was biking, it was climbing trees, it was hiking, it was you know, kick the can in the backyard. All these things that exercised your body, socialized you with other children, and just were a lot more fun. By the way, a lot less expensive than a $100 Nintendo game too, which you get tired of.
Just a personal peeve of mine, and I just want to get it out and get your reaction to it, is a blurring of the generations, of the contemporary generations. And you talk about respect, and I want to get into that a little bit later. But what I'm finding increasingly is adults dressing and acting like children, and children dressing and acting more adult than they ought to be. If that word adult can actually be used to describe the behavior we're talking about. But there's no, I had an old friend of mine, an older Arab fellow who had come over in the 70s, and he used to say there's no sense of hierarchy. That children don't have, and at your table and in your family gatherings, that was something that your parents talked about, was know your place.
Yeah, but the tradition of critical thinking, they would really provoke us. They'd prepare a utopia for the world, and they'd say, okay, take it apart. What's wrong? Is it unrealistic? Why is it unrealistic? Is it idealistic? Well, don't you think most good things in the world that are now practical started with idealism? So they really, they didn't cordon us off at all. My father was great with a few words. I came home from school one day and he said, Ralph, I was 10. He said, what'd you learn in school today? Did you learn how to believe or did you learn how to think? Now, that stayed with me right through college, law school. Is this teacher trying to teach me how to believe